Welcome to Pacific Keep Church. I'm glad that you guys are all here. We are starting the first week of a 4-week series as we step into Advent. And as I sat down to think about this, because we practice this pausing while we're going through the holiday season, this break from all that we're doing, whether we're preaching in Acts or last year we were preaching through the Old Testament. We take a pause in these 4 weeks that lead up to Christmas to think about Advent. And it hit me that I don't necessarily know where Advent came from. It's just one of these things that I've done historically, and I've noticed Christians doing, where they pause and they do this thing where they wait for Jesus. And it takes several weeks of flipping open a calendar and getting some chocolate that's stale, and then pretty soon you're at Christmas, and it's like, oh yeah, baby Jesus is here, and woo. But beyond that, I hadn't given Advent too much thought. Why do we practice Advent? Where does it come from? What is it that we're really looking at as we step into Advent? And it's really fitting. Over the course of the last several weeks, we've been looking at Acts of the Apostles, and in the summer, we were working through 1 Corinthians, talking about what it looks like to live out Christian community, what it looks like to actually embrace the challenge of being a community that loves one another and that lives out what Jesus taught us to do. And Acts is the follow-up of that. How was a church established that actually protected that actually drove that forward into the future, that kept doing the work of the Spirit in the world that brought us to where we are today? And in the midst of those two things, I think it's good to pause. It's good to pause to say, what is Christ doing? What does Christ coming actually do that empowers us to live in a community? What does the coming of Christ do for us that actually allows us to have something, a system, an organization like the church that is actually beautiful, that's actually good for the world, that actually propels us forward into something that God has been doing from the very beginning? And those things are encapsulated by the 4 weeks of Advent. So as we think about the themes of hope, love, peace, and joy together, as we step into that as an active embrace of Jesus' culture and Jesus' teaching in our lives, we might see that the world actually looks a little bit different on the other side of Christmas when we celebrate the coming of Jesus. Because it's really easy to get lost in the shuffle, as Boris said, in this holiday season if we don't stop, right? Black Friday has us spend all of our money, and then we have to scramble to put together money so we can come up with presents for Christmas because we spent it all on Black Friday. And then we're all anxious about, oh man, what's going to happen with my job, because there are a lot of layoffs and changes and promotions and everything in between, and there's anxiety and there's joy, and the holidays are just full of crazy stuff. And then there's family on top of that in the holiday season, right? And family, that can be joy, or it can be anxiety. Anybody feel that a little bit? Get family together and there's arguments, there's somebody talking about politics, there's somebody talking about religion, there's somebody who wants to tell long stories that you're like, I really want to play with my cousins, right? Or whatever it is. The holidays are full of a lot of baggage for us, and they get us really distracted when we're just focused on the cultural piece, and we miss out on what God is actually doing in the holidays. We miss out on what it means to celebrate the coming of Christ into our lives and into our world. The coming of Christ changed everything. But if we just go about the seasons in our culture, it might not feel like the coming of Christ has done a whole lot. If we're just stuck in the flywheel of going about our days, then we can lose the significance of the gift of hope and joy and peace and love. We can miss out on the gift that Jesus is to the world. We can miss out on the gift that Christianity brings to the world, that we as a community empowered by the Spirit can live out in the world, despite what's going on with our culture, despite what's going on in our families, despite what's going on in the news. We can live out lives of hope. And so I looked up Advent. I looked up the word Advent. And the example it gave me was the 40-hour work week was made possible by the advent of the microwave. And I was like, that's a little different than the advent of Christ, I think. But it gave me that example because the meaning of Advent what the word actually means in English, it means that we're celebrating the coming of an important person, an important time, or an important thing. And the coming of Christ is all of those things. It was this advent, this incredible revealing, this incredible entry of something brand new into the world. It was the entrance of hope, love, peace, and joy. It was God bringing those things to us, living them out among us, and leaving them with us. There's a quote that's often said, Christians have spoken of the three comings of Christ. This is a common theme of Christian theology, and it's something that's baked into Advent, which has actually been formally celebrated by a fast that I learned about since the 5th century. So that's the 400s. People were stepping into this in organization. So they're stepping in and saying, let's celebrate Advent by taking 25 days of fasting, right? Which I am glad that we've moved to 25 days of shopping rather than fasting, but 25 days of fasting leading up to the holidays. That's what everybody did. It was just part of the culture from the 400s on, celebrating these three things: the coming of Christ in flesh in Bethlehem, the coming of Christ in our hearts on a daily basis, and the coming of Christ in glory at the end of time. If you've been around Christian church at all much, you probably hear about how Christ came in Jesus and is coming back. There's a second coming that everybody is hopeful about, that Christians look forward to when Christ will come back and heaven and earth will kiss and everything will be made new. This misses the in-between, which is something that I think we would do well to pause on and reflect on. Jesus coming into our hearts on a daily basis. Jesus left us with the Holy Spirit, and when he did, he says at the end of the Gospel of Matthew, I'm with you always, to the very end of the age. And in the Christian community, as we're learning about in Acts, the gift of the Spirit is worked out in power and in love, empowering people to do the things that Jesus did, to live a life of hope and joy and love and peace. And so we are going to look at these three things, and I wanted to look at these three things specifically as it pertains to the concept of hope, or the idea of hope. And I thought about the way we use hope in our culture. And I was using hope a lot over the last week. I just started this new initiative at my job that I'm really hoping, is going to make money for the company. And so my boss is asking me, well, why do you hope that it's going to make money? And I'm like, well, here's all the data and the reasons. He goes, okay. He says, why should I believe that data? And I go, here's all the numbers, and here's all the history, right? And as I move forward, what I really mean is, when I initially started looking at these things for my job, I was really meaning to say, I wish this would make money. And as soon as I put data to it, reasons and history and background, it then becomes hope. I actually have a hope that this is going to happen because I have a grounding in reality. I have hope, not just a dream or a desire or a wish. I have hope because it's actually based on something. And I think a lot of the times when we use hope, what we really mean in our language and when we're just talking to people, we really mean, I wish this would happen. I was thinking about Christmas lists, and I was thinking about the Christmas story. Ralphie is hoping for a Red Ryder BB gun, right? He goes, oh man, I really want this BB gun. And everyone's telling him, you'll shoot your eye out, right? And then I was thinking about kids being on Santa's lap and what they tell Santa, like, I want this and that. I want a bicycle. I want a Nintendo. I want blah, 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 right? And as soon as they tell Santa, that hope is no longer a wish. There's grounding in reality. They told Santa. And in A Christmas Story, what happens at the end of the story? Ralphie gets that BB gun. And when you tell Santa something on his lap and your parents are watching you, you might just get that thing that you told Santa that you wanted. And I thought about how I used to write my own Christmas lists when I was a kid. Before I could even write, I would get out my crayons and I would circle coupons from the Toys R Us catalog, and I would paste them onto a sheet of paper, and I would order them from 1 to 10. Like, number 1 is what I want the most. And I'm like 4 years old. My mom's like, geez, this is a little too organized. But I almost always got the thing that was on the top of my list because I had reached out. It was no longer a wish. It was grounded in reality. There was something to back it up. That wish was backed up by the reality that I'd told somebody I wanted it. And it was backed up by the reality that in the past, that had worked. Just like for Ralphie, that had worked in A Christmas Story. And just like our Christian hope in Jesus is backed up by a reality that God isn't just some idea that we have. God actually came down to earth as a baby. As I was thinking about this sermon, I came across a Facebook post, as I always do, because most of the time when I'm prepping for a sermon, I get distracted by Facebook at some point. But I was going through Facebook, and I saw one of my friends posted some light holiday reading, and it was the book Religion Poisons Everything by Christopher Hitchens. And immediately, the emotion in me comes out. I'm like, that's not holiday reading. That's the worst thing to be reading. You shouldn't be reading that. Read Christmas stories or read the Bible or whatever. But I see this and I go, oh yeah, Christopher Hitchens. He is in the 20th century, he was one of the most revered public intellectuals. In fact, he made Time's top 100 people in the year 2000. And Christopher Hitchens is an avowed atheist. And he, as I was reading this post, I thought, before I respond to my friend, I need to think about what Christopher Hitchens actually said. And one of the popular things that Christopher Hitchens often brought up about Christianity and religion, the thing he would say is, anything that can be asserted or just said without evidence can also be dismissed without evidence. Any assertion without evidence can also be dismissed without evidence. And he took this and expounded it for all of Christianity and said Christianity is just, it's a lie, it's a myth. It's all based on faith and hope and weak things like that. And as I was thinking about this, I was thinking, man, I think Christopher Hitchens just had no idea what Christian hope actually means. And I think that a lot of us have no idea what Christian hope actually means. Because we equate hoping with just wishing on a star, wishing on an idea, hoping without anything to back it up, right? We are used to sitting on Santa's lap telling him what we want and maybe not seeing it come back to us because we don't have any grounding in reality. And this holiday season can help us get really far from reality. And so I wanted to bring it back by just emphasizing some of the truths about Jesus coming into the world as the Bible relates them. First of all, in Matthew, the birth of Jesus is told like this. It says, the birth of Jesus Christ took place in this way. When his mother Mary had been betrothed to Joseph, before they came together, she was found to be with child from the Holy Spirit. And her husband Joseph, being a just man and unwilling to put her to shame, resolved to divorce her quietly. Now, Mary being pregnant out of wedlock in ancient Mideastern culture would have looked really bad. And so Joseph was like, I want to do right by Mary, but I can't marry her. She has been going behind my back or something. We're not even married. She's not married. You know what? I'll just divorce her. But as he considered these things, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream, saying, Joseph, son of David, do not fear to take Mary as your wife, for that which is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet. This is the prophet Isaiah, and it comes from the Old Testament. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which means God with us. When Joseph awoke from his sleep, he did as the angel of the Lord commanded him. He took his wife, but knew her not, which I'll let you fill in the blanks on what that means, until she had given birth to a son, and he called his name Jesus, which also means God with us. On surface level, when we look at the story, we might say like, wow, Joseph didn't have much faith. But then an angel appears to Joseph And all of a sudden, his wish in his mind is, man, I really hope this isn't true with Mary. I love her. I don't want to divorce her. I'll do it quietly, I guess, because I have to. But then this angel comes and dispels all the fear and grounds Joseph's hope or his wish in a reality. He tells him directly, don't divorce Mary. She's having a baby by God. And Joseph is incredulous, I'm sure, like, what? She's having God's baby? But when an angel tells you this, I'm sure it's pretty hard to turn it down. Shining, light, I don't know, that's just what I imagine. And Joseph's wish about Mary is turned into hope. It's grounded in some reality. And it's grounded in a reality that goes back throughout the culture of his people. He quotes the prophet Isaiah, which Joseph would have known, being a good Jewish boy raised by the scriptures. He would know the story, just like we all know the Christmas stories. We all know about the ghosts of past, present, future, and Bob Crackett and Scrooge, right? We know these stories just culturally. He would have known this cultural story about this prophecy of this coming God, this baby born by a virgin. And he hears it, and he connects the dots because an angel is speaking to him, and he goes, oh, okay, this is the God thing. I believe it. I'm going to go out with hope that this is true. It's grounded in reality. Later, it's hope that causes Paul to write words like this. Actually, this is from an unknown author in Hebrews. Long ago, at many times and in many ways, God spoke to our fathers by the prophets, but in these last days, he's spoken to us by his Son. And Jesus made bold claims. He made really bold claims, like that he was the Son of God, or that he existed before Abraham existed, that he was the one who established the covenant with the people. He said, if you've seen me, you've seen God. And so if we believe in Jesus at all, and there are lots of scholars that do, there are even anthropologists that would talk about the existence of Jesus, but then how zealots came in and distorted it. But Jesus' words, as they're recorded by historians like Luke and Josephus, they say things that give us reason to believe that Jesus said what he said and that Jesus was who he was. He actually came in and showed us who God is. So that history that was brought through the prophets by the fathers of Israel was actually exposed in Jesus, whom he appointed the heir of all things, and through whom he also created the world. As the Gospel of John says, he was in the beginning with God, and the world was made through him. This Jesus that was born to Joseph was an actual hope because it was based on something real. Hope is based on something real. And Paul, in the first theologian, he says this in 2 Corinthians, as we go on. We do not lose heart, just having wishes or dreams. Though our outer self is wasting away, our inner self is being renewed day by day. For this light momentary affliction is preparing us for an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison, as we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal. Paul is speaking about hope being something more than just a wish. It's based on a reality. And that's my first takeaway for us today, that our hope is grounded in reality. Living out a life of hope requires us to be real. It requires us to be real with God. It requires us to be real about who we think God is. It requires us to be real with ourselves. We have to be real if we want to be people of hope. Just like you can't get what you want on Christmas as a little kid by just sitting in Santa's lap and doing nothing. We have to sit on Santa's lap and tell Santa what we want, right? Just like Christopher Hitchens, right, in that quote, if he was looking for evidence, perhaps he would find it for hope. Or my friend who's stepping into this time in life where he's saying, I don't know what I think about God. If he looks for something to ground it in, maybe that doubt would turn into hope. If we're looking for these things, if we're working for these things, if we're grounded in reality, if we're honest about our questions, if we're honest about our doubts, if we're honest about our desires, if we're honest about these things, we can transform them from just wishes dreams, thoughts into hope. So hope is grounded in reality. But there is another element to hope, and that hope is always looking forward. It's looking forward to something that's not present now. It's looking forward to something that we don't currently have. There's always something more to hope, isn't there? Right? There's something ahead of us. There's something above us. Or there's something beyond us that we're not quite grasping now. And that's what makes it hope versus just assurance or security, right? If we're secure, we have something. If we're hopeful, we don't have something, but we're pretty confident it's coming. We can be confident that it's coming. And that's what Paul talks about a lot in his letters. He says things like this: the mystery hidden for ages and generations, but now revealed to his saints. To them, the saints of God, God chose to make known how great among the Gentiles are the riches of the glory of this mystery, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. Paul acknowledges that trusting in God, having faith in God and believing is a mystery. It's something that will evade us for a long time. It's something that we won't necessarily know all of the pieces to, but it's a mystery that lives in us. And he says, it is with you presently. That hope is something to be worked out. And Paul also says in many places, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. There's an element where we have to work through the everyday stuff of life because promises are broken. Wishes don't come true. But we still hold on to hope despite that. Paul also says in a later work from Colossians, on the next slide, he says, we do not lose heart, though our outer self is wasting away. This is that same quote from 2 Corinthians. But it reminds us that we have day by day this reality that Christ is living in us and working through us. We have this reality in our lives of Christ's hope. And so my second point for us today is that hope requires patience and hope requires practice. If we're really honest with ourselves and we're grounding our hope in reality, we have to have the patience and we have to have the practice that allows us to step into hope on a daily basis. It's not simply enough to say, oh, I have this wish or this dream. We have to live it out a little bit. We have to look for that evidence. We have to see it coming to fruition in our lives. And sometimes that's really, really, really hard to do. Right, church? Isn't it hard to hope for things? Hard to have patience in the midst of suffering and confusion? It's really, really hard. And I equate this with dating in my own life. I had a really miserable and horrible experience dating. It lasted way longer than I wanted it to, right? I was dating longer than I wanted. We actually just recently watched our wedding video that a friend recorded. Actually, Lindsay's stepmom recorded it for us. And my dad had this appearance in this video that I didn't expect at all. He's leaning into the camera, and he's like, you know what's funny? About 8 months ago, Jack was telling me how sad he was and how he wasn't going to meet anybody. And now look, he's married to this wonderful woman. And it was this really heartfelt message from my dad, but it reminded me about how difficult it is to hope. And as I was thinking about my friend who's wrestling in this holiday season with this idea that he should be stepping into Jesus, and this book by Christopher Hitchens, and the distraction that our culture can brew in our lives, I thought about my dad's words as I sat down at Rockwood Bakery, which is a coffee shop up on 18th. It's the first place I had a date with Lindsay. It was where I met her. And I sat down and I thought, man, I had hope going into that. I had hope going into that meeting. And it turned around my dating life. Just like I think stepping into life circumstances with hope can turn around our daily lives in whatever circumstances, in our jobs. Turning over jobs is hard, and it's often out of our control. But if we have hope, maybe we have the confidence to say, I know I can get another job. Or I know I can find a place to work. Or I know who I can ask that can help me while I'm looking for a job. Or as we're working on things like our marriages, if we're saying, man, this is not working, things are falling apart, there's all this difficulty, I don't know what to do. If we have hope, if we can see other things going well, if we can see people and we see this evidence of God working in people's lives, we know who to ask. We know where to go for help. We can turn our wishes or our doubts and fears and struggles in our present life into hope by seeking out, by practicing. So part of it is having patience, but the other part is practice. And I was thinking about, what are those practices? And I was thinking about my friend reading Christopher Hitchens, and I was thinking about his mentality on dating and my mentality on dating, because I was sitting at Rockwood Bakery where my dating life transformed. And I was thinking about his, and he's been with the same person for 8 years and has no hope for marriage. He says, no, absolutely not, I won't have marriage. And is attracted to Christopher Hitchens, and I was thinking, what is the difference between he and I? What is that difference between the struggle that he feels and this doubt and fear and my just optimism? Where does that come from? Why do I have this hope? Part of it is grounded in Jesus, that reality. But part of it is I have just practiced hope. I didn't become hopeful by wanting to be hopeful. I became hopeful by trying to be hopeful. And I know a lot of Christians in that same boat. I say that out of vulnerability, and I hope that you can see it in your own life. As I try to be more hopeful, I develop more hope by doing things like this, by investing, by giving, and by praying. Oftentimes, I run into Christians, and I've told this before, but I mentor college students who they go through this period where they have a really hard time praying. And I think they have a hard time praying because they don't have prayers that are based in hope. They have prayers that are just wishes. They're not looking at the track record of God in their lives, in their own lives. They just don't know how to voice that to God. They don't know how to look back and say, oh, I see where God has been. I trust God will be here. I'll ask for God's intervention in those places. And by investing, I don't just mean with money. And giving, I don't just mean with money. I mean doing it in our daily lives. Investing in people. How many of you would say you have some good friendships? Hands up if you have some great friends, right? If you have great friends, it's because that you have invested in them and they have invested in you. If you have great friends in your life, it's because you've invested. It's because you have hoped. It's because you've believed and practiced that things can be good. You've practiced that something can be created together that I can't do alone. By investing, we're practicing hope. And I would ask you, if you're maybe like, well, I have some friends, I have some good friends. I don't know if I have great friends. Or if you're going, man, I just feel like I don't have any friends at all. Or if you say, I have great family, but not great friendships, or I have great friendships, but not great family, what might be an area of investment for you? What might be those areas that we can invest in? There's areas where we can practice hope. Areas where we can step in and say, man, this person has flaked on me like 8 times. You know what? I'm going to take the yoga approach. It's not serving me, so forget about it. Or can we say, you know what? I know this person flakes a lot, but I'm going to keep trying. I know this person has let me down, but I'm going to give them another chance. And of course, there are limits to this. I would say if there's like abuse involved or whatever, then absolutely not. But there are elements where we can try to practice hope, investing in people. A perfect example for me is a story that many of you have heard before. My cousin with his drug addiction issues, he would say this is something that got him out. People invested in him despite this cycle that he continued of destruction. By investing, that was turned around, and his reality was changed. The trajectory of his life was changed to something more beautiful. And giving, I don't mean just giving money or giving presents, which we're all thinking about right now, and that's great. Giving presents is awesome. But think about, how can we give back to something? Oftentimes, when we give, we recognize the joy of receiving. And this is something that I believe really changed my dating life. As I was sitting there, I was like, it was really like a practice giving. I just tried to tell people, like, hey, dig into your relationship, or hey, believe that there's somebody out there for you, or hey, maybe that idea about relationships is just wrong. Like maybe there actually is like a soulmate. Maybe there is something out there. Maybe you'll find it. And as I started telling this to people and giving this to people, and I started to receive it for myself. As we give, we learn how to receive better, and the hope in our lives can increase because we start to see a track record of good things building, hope grounded in reality and practiced in patience. I think this squares with what the church has done, looking at the historical coming of Christ, the birth of Jesus, but then Christ living in our hearts. Christ living in our hearts is hard. But we can practice things that help us to experience the Christ that lives in us. And then finally, as we look to the coming glory of Christ and we turn to Revelation, we see this brilliant scene when God is revealed coming on his throne and heaven and earth are reuniting. At the end of all things, in Revelation 21, it says, I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away. He who is seated on the throne said, behold, I am making all things new. And also he said, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. And the writer who wrote this piece of the Old Testament believed these things were trustworthy and true because he received it from the angels presently, and he believed in what Jesus had done. He believed in what God had been doing from the very beginning, that this actually rings true, that God is making all things new. And so our hope gives us power that other people don't have, church. Hope gives us power that others don't have. If you look around the world and you don't see hope, love, joy, and peace, that's because you don't see Jesus. And in a lot of what we do, we don't see Jesus. Because people aren't trying to live Jesus. People aren't practicing hope. People don't have grounding in the reality that Jesus came and made us new and is making all things new. Church, we have that. If we have Christ in our hearts, we can hold on to this hope that this will be a reality someday. This will be a reality someday. It's not that we hold on to hope as silly people without evidence. We have a track record that shows it. We have a God that's working in our lives. And the more time I spend around Christian people, I hear these incredible stories, like Anna's recovery from cancer, right? Or like the coming together of two people out of nowhere, or the building back up of a marriage that has been severely broken. Church, things like this are happening in our community, in the Pacific Keep community, because we're a people who are practicing hope on a daily basis, and we're looking forward to that hope being real. We have this idea that it is all happening, that the glory of God is coming into our lives. And I wanted to contrast, I've talked a lot about Christopher Hitchens, his challenge for Christianity, and it's a good challenge. It's one that we should talk about. But I was thinking also about a saint that recently passed, and in honoring Hitchens, I am inclined to also honor the saint, Eugene Peterson, who told us this about hope. Eugene Peterson offers a very different perspective. He said, hoping does not mean doing nothing. It's actually the opposite of desperate and panicky manipulations, of scurrying and worrying. And hoping is not dreaming. It's not spinning an illusion or fantasy to protect us from our boredom or our pain. It means a confident, alert expectation that God will do what he said he will do. It is imagination put in the harness of faith. It is a willingness to let God do it his way and in his time. Eugene Peterson recently died in his 90s. He died up in Colbert, a peaceful death. And there was an article written about him that said his long obedience has ended. And this is from his book, A Long Obedience in the Same Direction. In obedience to believe that hope of God is a real thing. That Jesus came into his life, is still in his life, and that Jesus will be there on the other side of death. That's a very, very different perspective than saying, man, I need to see proof. Where are you looking for proof? Where are you looking for the grounding for your hope? Where are you practicing it in your life? Where are you having love, joy, and peace where others can't or just won't? That's my third takeaway. Living a life of hope means showing peace. It means showing joy. It means showing love to the world where other people just can't or simply won't. There are a lot of people that won't embrace peace because peace is in conflict with power, and there are a lot of people after power that think that that's the ultimate thing to hope for. If I get enough power, then forget it. I don't have to worry about anything. But we believe in a much bigger power. We believe in a power that's redefining all of humanity from the past, the present, and the future. That's what hope is. It empowers us to love, to be hopeful, to have joy when others can't. And there are a lot of people in your life, church. There are a lot of people in your life, family, friends, coworkers, that just can't have hope, love, joy, or peace because they don't have any grounding in Jesus. They don't have any perspective that things have been done that exemplify a reason to hope. And they're maybe not seeing it around them, a lot like a lot of us. Church, we have the ability in Advent season, we have the ability always as Christians with the Holy Spirit inside us, if we do have it, we have the ability to show hope, love, joy, and peace. God has given us that power. He's left it with us. And so my challenge for you as we step into hope and as we start thinking about the advent of Jesus into our lives in flesh, in the spirit, and in the future, as we're thinking about it, where is the hope in your life? Where's the hope not in your life? Can you bring hope into it? Is that possible? Could we look at things differently? Could we bring it in? Could we practice investing, giving? Could we practice these things? Can we try it on? And maybe that hope will become not just a wish, but a reality in our lives, in our community, and in our world. Let's pray. Lord, thank you so much for the hope that you gave us in Jesus. Thank you for building us up. Thank you for loving us through and through. Thank you that you came in flesh to show us what God is like. Thank you that you live in us and that you give us evidence to continue to hope in our daily lives. And thank you that you said you're making all things new, and you actually are. We pray that we can believe this, that we can trust it, that we can practice it, and that as we go forward in Christmas, we can think about joy, love, and peace a little differently. That it's not something we just hope for and wish for. It's something we can actually do. It's something we can live into. Lord, in your name, amen.